Linux OTC. Welcome to episode 17. We're your hosts. I'm Bill.
I'm Eric.
I'm the Majid number.
And I'm surprised we've made it this far.
Oh, it was one of those build it and they'll come things.
Did they ever come?
I think they did. Here we are, episode 17.
Oh,
We're
you meant Eric and Majid. Yeah, okay, yeah. They came.
And we've got 2 or 3 people listening, and I guess
I like that. 2 or 3 people listening.
Right.
well, I kind of have the same attitude towards it as I do, with keeping friends in life. If I've got 2 or 3 good friends, that's good than having 1,000, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
That is about right.
Yes, you keep telling yourself that, Bill.
Yeah.
All my friends are on the internet.
Yeah.
All
And he
my real
sits there
friends.
in his truck crying away. I've only got 2 friends.
Oh God.
this-
There
exit.
is some actual conventional wisdom to new podcasts and taking time to, even with expensive marketing and all the things that this show doesn't have the benefit of, distribution and all that kind of stuff.
What do you mean?
where-
I'm being paid an extortionate amount to be on here.
Well,
You're getting paid?
Yeah.
before you was on the show, I was tinkering around with some dynamically placed ads with the service that we were using, and it was paying us about $5 a month, something like that. But
Yeah,
it was irritating people. I use it on 3 Fat Truckers, and nobody cares because you expect in that world people expect
Right.
that kind of thing. But on OTC, for the value I was getting out of it, it wasn't worth the irritation that it was causing. So I went ahead.
Have you heard the adverts on other Linux podcasts? They're
I
interesting.
pay the little money to get an advert-free feed on a lot
Yeah.
of those. So,
I think it depends on whether they are host-read ads or if they're the inserted ads. Because host-read ads, I actually don't mind because I feel like there's some
Yeah.
legit connection between the producer and the podcast.
Unless they're talking
and-
about beds or like
Well,
Soylent Green,
yeah. No, you're
But it
true.
also
That-
depends as well because because I've been hearing ads on the late like Linux set of podcasts, Linux After Dark, Linux Downtime, Joe Ressington ones, and they are host ads, and they were initially all kind of tech based, but now they're ads like about HelloFresh and things like
Yeah,
that.
you
which
have
is
to
fine.
understand though.
I
You
love
have to
it. Fine.
understand, like as a independent podcast producer, it is getting harder and harder to find people who will pay for advertising in those podcasts because they don't have all of the metrics of something like an iHeart or a Spotify or those platforms give them all of that sort of data that looks fancy, and honestly it doesn't really guarantee anything, the whole click-through rate and all that stuff, but it's something that gives them marketing folks a certain comfort level to say, yeah, we'll give you money, whereas if you're an independent, the best you got is downloads, and there's very little, it's sort of all anecdotal beyond that. And so it's a hard, road to hoe right now, for those independent producers.
I mean, there are some adverts which are done by the hosts, which I find really grating, personally. I'm not
Well,
going to mention which podcasts or which networks,
Oh.
but there are some where the
some are like
host will then-
infomercials, like the podcast
yeah.
version of an infomercial.
Yeah,
Right.
the host will go into a 5
3 minutes
little
later,
speech.
you're like-
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be like, this is the most fantastic mobile network
Yeah,
I've
and
ever
that's-
used. And I used
that's-
to use it.
I think there's
Oh,
some
and
wisdom
that gets a
in
bit
it, though.
annoying.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Eric knows exactly what you're talking about.
Now I know
yeah.
what you mean. Yes, where it's like, where did this, and they're on YouTube as well, where this, real, and it's usually someone that's like really snarky. Like I'll watch someone who's like really sarcastic, and then they turn to the other camera, and all of a sudden they're so sincere, and this product's amazing, and it's like, what just happened?
Yeah. Hello, Fresh.
suddenly I want to use Tailscale, and
Hey,
So
wait.
anyway,
Hold on. Tailscale's good.
it is good.
I will tell you-
and
It is
no
good, actually.
denying it.
Majid, like, I agree. I really like the Joe Ressington podcast, always have. I just think he does a good job with the guests and everything. I pay the $10 and I get the feed for, with the
Me too.
ad
Hey,
free.
you got the link
Yeah.
for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you stop paying the money, that feed somehow stops working. I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's unique to each subscriber.
Anyway, but the sad thing is, we're now in this world where content, every little bit of it, unless you want to be, and ads are getting worse. I just read today that Amazon Prime, if you're a Prime member, you've gotten all this, Prime
yep,
content for
yep.
free.
Yeah, I heard this as well.
Next year, they're going to start charging $2.99 a month to not see advertisements in that kind of stuff. And I'm like, duh, there's just no escape anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that was the whole point of Prime Video, wasn't it?
Well, that's the whole
Exactly.
point of streaming. You
Yeah.
paid just for that, and then they wouldn't give you ads, and that was the deal. Well, the deal has been changed, and now we just have to pray the deal is not changed.
But see,
further.
Netflix has
Well-
proven that they can just keep milking more and more money out of people, and people will just keep paying it.
Have
No,
they
you know what
really?
Netflix
have
proves?
they really? I don't think so.
Netflix
I mean,
proves that they
I'll
have too much
disagree.
money. That's what my
Yeah.
take on it is. You keep spending billions of dollars a year on content where 50% of it or more is throwaway. Nobody wants to watch it. Very few people. And it's like hyper focused on target audiences. They do all of this weird stuff and they spend so much money that of course they have to recover it. They can't be in the red forever. These companies have to make money eventually. And
But, I
that's
mean,
what's
the-
happening.
I like that they do that weird stuff though, because those shows would never have been made otherwise.
You have to. Yes, I agree.
They do seem to hit all of the demographics with all of these different shows because there does
Yeah.
seem to be something for everybody on
Right,
there.
and there's room for all sorts of different opinions and perspectives. That's the good part. The bad part is that we foot the bill.
Oh yeah,
Right.
of course. Well, the customer always
And-
foots the bill, no matter how they want to spin it. It's always down to us.
Well, this is
that
what
one
we
show.
wanted in the '90s, wasn't it? When we complained about paying for all these channels,
Yeah,
we
well,
weren't
yeah.
watching, and
But isn't
right
the problem also? It's not all about investors aren't just looking at how much money something is making. They're looking at growth, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, yeah.
That's
and
the
prob-
unfortunate part.
And the problem you have with these streaming services is that at the end of the day, there's only a set number of people in the world. There's only a set number of eyes that can watch your
Yeah.
content, and however much you do it, however explosive your initial growth will be, it will plateau off at a certain point. And when it starts plateauing off, investors and shareholders start getting, well, we're not growing at 53% like we were last year, and
Right.
we need to get the money somehow. And actually what you're finding then is that some of that interesting side content that you're mentioning starts getting cancelled,
Yeah.
quickly.
Right.
Because we're not growing as fast as we should. Because you're not going to. Because there's 8 billion people in the world. At a certain amount of time, it's just going to stop. But growth is what they're looking for, rather than the actual number, right? I mean, Disney's another example. Disney's throwing so much stuff at the wall to see what sticks and what will
Yeah.
grow the business, rather than just consolidating and saying, you know what, let's just make some good content that people will actually watch and enjoy, rather than we'll make 10 rubbish shows, sully the name of great heroes and great franchises for the 1 or 2 really good ones.
I have to
Yeah.
admit, though, with Disney Plus, they've taken Star Wars and done things with it that like we would have wanted when we were 12 years old. The bringing back these characters with the original actors, and then like having a continuation of the.
We can do that for the next 100 years too. We have AI, man.
Oh God, that's another thing. How does AI play in?
No
all
one
this in
will
the future?
ever die. Harrison Ford, dude, he's in the next 17 Star Wars.
Yeah, this is
they
actually
already
a
killed
problem,
him.
actually. This is actually
Yeah,
a problem.
He'll come back. Don't worry. We're doing prequels.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean,
we
they
can
already bought
de-age him,
Carrie.
so, right.
They bought Carrie Fisher
Well, they
back, didn't
brought
they?
everybody else back, didn't they? They dropped the Emperor like into nothingness and brought him back.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean,
why
this,
not?
this is one of the things that's the problem with modern franchises and movies anyway, because there's no stakes, because everybody comes back. It's like this all this multiverse stuff. How can you invest in, it felt bad when Iron Man died at the end of Avengers, spoiler alert, at the end of Avengers Endgame, because you're invested in the fact in him. If he's just going to come back now, I mean, I'm not saying that he is, but if he did, then
Well-
what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything anymore.
And
Right?
they've done nothing to lead people to think that he's going to come back. But because of all this, there's an expectation out there now, I think, for people that are following these stories that eventually they're going to bring him and
No, but you can't get invested in a character if you think he's gonna come back. This is
I
my
don't want to be
point.
the but in the comics guy, but in the comics, that's exactly how it went. That's exactly how everything went. Like there are multiverse upon multiverse upon multiverse upon different version of the comic upon different person in the suit upon it's over and over.
Well,
That's
reboots.
exactly-
But it's
lots
done.
of that
But it's
stuff,
done differently, isn't it? So for
No, it's
example,
not.
no,
It's
no. So
not.
for example, the Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man animated series with Miles Morales,
which is fantastic.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And the reason it works is because there is something genuinely different about that character, something genuinely different about that world, right? And the fact that it's not Peter Parker being Spider-Man is not relevant. And that's interesting. What I mean is, what I mean is literally at the end of Infinity War, half of humanity is destroyed, and then by the time the next one comes, they're all back again now. It's kind of,
Well, they
okay.
reversed the snap, man.
Yeah, but do you see what? But okay. Or Star Wars is another example. Star Wars is the other example of the Emperor comes back. The whole point is that the Emperor's dead. That's the whole bloody point.
I wonder
He's
if
too
they
powerful to die.
they struggled with trying to introduce the concept of multiverse to a movie and TV show only audience.
Well, look,
I wonder if a comic book audience grasps a concept like that a little bit.
I'll
better.
tell you
don't
what
think-
did the multiverse well. I'll tell you what did the multiverse really well. That film that won the Oscars, Everything Everywhere All at Once. That was it was crazy, it was hilarious, and it was something interesting, and it did feel like this is how a multiverse would actually work if it existed. It was a bit weird in bits as well, but I thought, because I remember that came out at the same time as the Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness, and I remember thinking to myself, that independent film's done it better than this 200 million quid behemoth.
Well, so I think what the reason it works, the reason it makes billions of dollars, is because most of the people that go to watch movies like that, it's not that deep. It's not that deep to them.
Yeah.
It is not. It
They
is
just want some
explosions.
flashy
It is-
entertainment.
Yep.
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
Fair
superheroes.
point.
It's a meteor coming to Earth,
Yep.
and Iron Man pop out at the last moment. Well, he was dead,
So
but he's
my
not anymore.
my
Blah.
turning point in modern movie production was when they rebooted Transformers
my
into
God.
live action. Well, if you want to call that live action. And I remember I was at a movie where at the end of it, or no, the beginning, the previews, right? You hear Optimus Prime's voice just out of nowhere. Optimus Prime. Oh my God, Optimus Prime? Are you kidding me? Optimus Prime? Like that like primordial, like I'm tingling. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? What is this? And they're like, Transformers coming, blah blah blah. I have to see this, and I'm so excited. And I go and I see it. 5 minutes in, I'm like, I hate this. I hate this so much.
They
Majid has been
really
triggered
leaned
the
on
entire time.
the stupid, snarky remarks.
Has anybody ever seen the reviews of a film critic called Mark Kermode? He's a British reviewer. You might not have.
Probably not.
He used to be on BBC Radio. He also used to write for one of the papers. He is famous for going off on rants about different movies that he will review. And he famously went off on an 11-minute rant. I can share it in the Discord later if you want, about Transformers, about how it was emblematic of the destruction of civilization, and how what it showed was just as when Rome was falling, the games in the Colosseum got more and more ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
exactly what's happened with Transformers.
Right. Well, wait, did we do 4 lions last week? Wait a minute, we got to do 6 lions this week, right?
Hang on, though.
I mean,
Hang on.
so
Let me
so
tie
here's-
this in. Let me tie it in, though. Hold on. Let me tie this entire conversation into Linux, because don't forget.
Please do.
Yeah.
Oh, is this a Linux show? All right, okay.
It is.
Oh yeah, Linux.
You're doing the thing with movies that Gentoo, that Arch people do with. I run Arch, by the way. You're doing that thing where it's like movies have to be at this standard in this way every time. Otherwise, it's rubbish. And
No, but the thing is, this is a crass sexualization of what was
and
once
this is
a
why
children's
pulse
toy.
audio does not
Yeah?
belong in a real production system. You go pipe wire every single time because there's latency. Latency. Can you? That's so. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's exactly how the conversation.
You were supposed to be pounding your desk just then, but
Yeah.
Every time I've got something to say where it starts with "well on Arch," I kind of like grab a hold of something because I know
Triggered.
what's getting ready to happen. Because you come up with these things because you do run into a lot more of these edge cases or these things that people probably haven't seen yet because they're 9 or 10
Because those bugs are
versions
fixed in the
behind.
distributions because the distributions know about those bugs and they fix them. In Arch, it's just vanilla. So until the developer fixes them,
Well,
Arch won't get that fix.
I think though that these
You just
things
say
should be
yes.
sent back upstream to the original
They
project.
are,
That
but the
way
developer,
they can be.
right? But they're fixing the distro, and it's just going to take time for the developer to merge that fix. And until they merge,
And if he
that
merges
fix,
it at 1:00 in the afternoon, at 1:05 in the afternoon, I've got it.
or if he's on
that's-
vacation for a month, you ain't getting it for a month.
Oh well, they're not allowed to go on vacations.
Yeah, well, if you pay them, they're not allowed to go on vacation.
Pay
But
them.
We don't do that.
Open source
so-
is free. What are you talking about? Pay them.
exactly.
I might have missed this bit. Why have you gone to Gentoo, Leo?
Oh, just for fun.
For his other show.
Just to see what's going on over there. It's another long lasting distro like Debian, not as long, but and it's hard. Like there's only one distro I can think of that's any harder than Gentoo. So
and
it's
that is
Linux from scratch, but it's
okay.
hard.
I knew you were going to say that. That's not.
Yeah,
a
yeah.
distro.
Just I see it. I see LFS thrown out every time I say Gentoo. Someone's like LFS, and I'm like, why? But
And
anyway,
nobody's ever used LFS. I literally
except for
have
the
never
people
met.
that fancy doing a distro, and then they're like, I'll just base
Yeah.
it on Ubuntu.
I imagine
Yeah,
there's a lot
it's
of people
interesting
that
how
have started.
so many distros start off as Linux from scratch and then just become it's just based on Ubuntu.
Yeah, well, it's too cool.
all right.
That
So
you
Gentoo and
realize-
Slackware and Linux from scratch and all of those, and you look at what's the value proposition. And before the show started, because of course
Yeah.
we have all these great conversations before the show starts, we were talking about at one point in history, there was a legitimate reason to do it in terms of performance. And Leo very, astutely said, you either pay the price up front by compiling everything yourself for your specific machine, right? Because that's what you were trying to do, was tune it to your hardware. And then you had a better experience later on. Or you just worked with something that wasn't custom compiled and was a little slower all the time, right? That was the trade-off. So there was a value proposition there that if you wanted to go through that, you would actually get something in return for it. Today, the value proposition for those is much different than it was back then. I don't think in a reasonable way, and maybe this isn't true of very specialized hardware, but for the most part, I don't think there's going to be any kind of an actual return beyond the knowledge that you gain or the enjoyment that you feel by doing it the hard way.
I think your
Right?
biggest value now is probably just being able to trade out low-level components of the system, like System D for SysV.
But you
is
can
it
do that in
SysVNet,
Arch.
or
You can do that in.
you can,
any-
but you're not. You got to go outside of the
careful. Bill,
normal.
You use Arch. Don't talk too much trash.
Well, Arch still has a very straightforward way of being set up, and it's user space that is where most of the changes are. You can do other init systems on it, but you're going outside of the Arch wiki when you're doing
What?
that.
I'm sorry,
You're-
what? The Arch
You're
what?
going the Arch wiki. Did I say that wrong?
Did you just say wiki? It's
Yeah.
wiki. Wiki, not
Should we do this
wiki.
now? Should we
He's
do this
from
now? Is it
Wisconsin.
time?
Oh no.
Yes.
I'm not. No, that no. No, I ain't doing that. Aluminium.
This one's on both sides of the pond here, buddy.
All right. Well, ZFS.
It's
Now
it's
that
it's
one.
like to me, wiki and wiki is like GNOME and GNOME. There are people who say that both ways, and
GIF
I
and
kind of
GIF.
feel like
No, there's a
no,
correct
that
answer
one is
there.
unacceptable.
See, everybody's
How
got
dare you.
one.
But no,
That's awesome.
Wiki, when I hear it, I definitely immediately go, wait, what? And then I go, okay, that one's cool. I'm okay with that one.
I don't
You
say
start
that word out
saying-
loud very much, though. Maybe,
You start
I don't
saying
know.
GIF, and we're gonna have problems.
Well, we're about to have problems.
Anyway, yes, I know nobody
Yeah,
says
'cause
it out
it's a
loud, and then you kind of look
giraffics
at it and go,
interchange format.
No,
Well,
you said it. Giraffe. There is a word that works that way. Giraffe, or maybe gin. I don't know.
I like that second one better.
all right. So we've established that language is sort of, you know,
We've established that Bill
relative.
can't talk very well, and his accents
Well, we
are
got
terrible.
this.
We've established that.
Why does this exist in Linux so much? Is it because we're afraid of getting sued because the names of software sounds like something that's patented, or is there just this culture of unknowable, unsayable words that
You know, I thought it was just a
Yeah.
niche thing, right? A niche thing. But let me see.
Well done. You just covered it both bases. Just right.
Sure did.
it's coming natural at this point?
Let's see.
Oh.
It's,
Sure, it's
yeah,
not
the
niche.
circle stuff. Niche. Yeah, it is. But like, but it's in the GNOME Circle apps, right? Like, what is Amberall? Could you tell me what Amberall does without knowing what it does prior?
Never heard of it.
No, it's got a play symbol
No.
for an icon. Can you guess then?
Something with music
Yeah. So
or video.
there are things like curtail. Could you tell me what that might do?
Oh, that's to do with files.
Okay. Oh, wait. Is that because you knew?
Yes, because I knew.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say I didn't get that from curtail, but okay.
Yeah. Fragments like they have meaning. Like
Yeah.
they do go to what they're doing, but I don't know,
Yeah.
man. Like names are weird and
See, I mean-
feel like
But it's hard.
I feel like
Imagine
the Linux
this. Okay.
names-
You're gonna go on start a new project, right? You go on GitHub or wherever you're gonna go. You start searching, or you just go to a search engine,
I've got an answer.
and
for
you and all of a sudden you're like, oh well, the first 25 names I've thought of are taken in some way or
happens.
another, and so all of a sudden you're just like, it's like picking a username now, where you just got to like mash together 15 different things to get something unique because there's 20 million people using this platform.
Yeah.
For
So-
Flying Spaghetti Monster 6032.
Yeah, but I
Love
think
it.
a lot
There
of
you go.
times, especially depending on how old you are, there's a lot of hacker culture baked
Oh, yeah,
into
100%, 100%.
name
Yeah.
selection and what you call things and how you use things and what the apps.
Wait,
actually
is that where you
do.
put numbers in instead of letters? Is
Not
that
no. Well, yes, but not in this case. No.
No.
I think.
I mean,
think a lot of
GitHub is the
times-
best example for me. GitHub is the best example for me in that the word Git, as we've talked about on Mincast, is a
Right.
colloquial term in the
I think
UK.
I think you'll find
for
it's JIT.
oh God Almighty.
That's correct.
Right.
JIT.
Yeah, but the fact that somebody came up with that as it's kind of like I'm trying to think of another what might be a more common version. Fool, having Fool Hub.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But only the clever kids know what a Git is, and so that's why
Yeah,
I'm going to
except
call
that
it that.
who
And
came
it's
up
just
with
like-
Git?
Finnish, right?
right? Torvalds came up with Git, so you're saying that the creator of Linux is misinformed in some way, or
No, he's just
what
a
are
bit
you
weird.
trying to say?
He is a bit
in
weird.
English colloquialisms, yes.
Yeah. No, but he's clearly a bit weird, isn't he?
Maybe he did it to be inflammatory.
Well,
Maybe
I
he
mean-
said, "Watch, they'll love this. I'm going to call
Well,
it
right, like
GitHub."
the graphics. What is it? GIMP.
Yeah. Do
Well,
you
he
remember a
didn't come
couple
up
of years?
with-
Do
He
you
didn't come
remember a
up with
couple of years?
GitHub, I don't think. That was a.
No, but Git.
He came
Yeah,
up with Git. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you remember a couple of years ago? There was this whole thing about the what was it? Something to do with behavior standards on the Linux code email list or something like that.
Oh,
and, like,
because
you know-
he was so inflammatory that people.
yeah,
were like,
exactly.
Oh, yeah,
yeah, because
so
he was
he-
acting
post meritocracy
Yeah.
post meritocracy manifesto was that
Yeah.
stupid
The point the
thing
the,
that
the point
came
the
out.
point was
Good
he
for you,
was
Bill.
the point was that he
God.
the point
That's
was
the
that
stuff that's swimming.
You're gonna go
around
take a
up
nap
here.
now.
I need useful information, and instead I've got that swimming around up there.
Yeah.
The point is, though, if in any other kind of industry, somebody behaved like the way that, Linus and some other people behaved, they would have been sacked ages ago.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's good to be king, though.
Yeah, no, but
you know what? Honestly,
but do you see what I'm trying to say? I'm trying to say that Leo's point about hacker culture, this and that. Yeah, because there is a bit of that kind of oddball, slightly misanthropic,
there's
slightly
a lot of that. Yeah,
slightly, obviously very nerdy, very geeky, in crowd type of mentality, and that's not surprising because those are the kinds of people that gravitate towards an open source project that 1% of the population use.
But I think you sort of,
a certain set of people do it.
You kind of have, exactly, but it goes well beyond that. I think you can look at people like Steve Jobs and sort of other innovator type people who have a vision, who are very like sort of stern and set, and and instead of
who was behind Jobs though? He wasn't alone. That was
educate me,
Wozniak.
Leo.
Well, Steve, yeah, Wozniak.
Okay, you're right. So he wouldn't have had
So
the
he
leg to
was the
stand
eclectic guy that
Right,
Steve with the vision.
Well, but they
right,
complemented each other. Exactly.
Of course. Who's Linus's Wozniak? Or who's Linus's Jobs?
I don't know. Nobody.
Maybe we need one.
Yeah, I think that's the point.
Is it
The point that we
Ikaza,
haven't.
the guy that made GNOME?
Well, maybe he's both.
Things could
Maybe
get
he's both,
real
and that's
hairy.
kind of it. Like, so I think with
I don't think
developers in
Linux-
particular,
I don't think Linus cares about the desktop that much.
No.
I mean, he does. He cares about not
doesn't.
breaking user space, but I don't know that he's very passionate about.
I think he
GNOME
appreciates the
platform.
fact that it exists. I think he likes the fact that he doesn't have to use Windows or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he thinks about that as being the highest priority, which I don't think he should, because quite frankly, in comparison to the rest of the world's infrastructure, the Linux desktop is not important. It
Oh,
just
yeah.
is
and,
not.
And I think
I'm sorry.
even for a time he had used Mac.
Yeah, right. But I think, specifically with developers and in working with many myself, it's unfair to put them in a position where they have to be the great communicator.
Yeah.
It's not,
That's their job.
not a technical communicator, someone who's actually giving you very specific information. Yes, they have to be good at that. But in terms of like interpersonal banter skills, sort of human compassion, like sort of all that stuff, it's just not, the guy's busy. He's thinking about really seriously, infrastructure, like code, like he's got all this stuff going through his head, and then some insipid comment comes in and it just triggers him, And of course it does, because like it's the least important thing that could possibly be, in front of him at that moment. And he lashes out. And I have never, I think the personal attacks can be a little too much. And that's really where I think you can be angry and you can lash out. But I think when you start picking at people specifically, and I think that's what got him in trouble this time, and what gets him in trouble every time, is like, you can't go after the person, right? Be mad at the situation, right? So, hate the game, not the player, whatever that is.
Yeah, I think, but it does show that you can go get help and you can come back and you can. None of that is useful, and then you can just put email filters so that you don't say specific words.
Well,
I think it speaks highly
you
of
just
him
got
too.
you gotta work smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And I think it speaks highly of him that he was cognizant enough of how he was being received that it meant enough.
Well, I think
to
he
him
had
to
external
go,
voices whispering and saying,
Well,
hey,
there
man.
are other people that are being a complete ass in the community, and they're well aware of how they are being received as such.
Yeah.
And we're not,
Is there a well awareness?
It's a pretty nasty cough you got there, Majid.
yeah,
I know.
yeah. But yet at the same time, there is a complete lack of willingness to do anything about it, or even at least acknowledge the fact that, hey, I realize, folks, that I come across a little bit like this, but these are the reasons that I have to.
Well, he
be.
has said those reasons.
Right.
It just comes across as, this is how it is, and everybody else is wrong, and I'm right, and which I do tend to believe that people like him have a place in the ecosystem. You have to have that yin and yang, don't you? You got to have something weighing you down on both ends to keep us.
But the
kinda
fact that
in the middle.
that he changed, you know, I think you're right. That is a, whether or not it was a you are going to change or bad things will happen, or whether it was a, oh, I never realized, you know, oh, I won't do that anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, maybe it was a little bit of both. Who knows? But he's the right guy for the job. He just is. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. There's always a blind spot there. There's always you're always out of touch with something.
Yeah.
And I mean, you absolutely have to have
Well-
other people in the room to tell you, yo, nope, that's too far. Maybe don't do that ever again.
Right. Right. Well, you need to be able to read the room, right? When you say something and you look around and everybody's going, oh.
Yeah, yeah. But
That was-
some folks some folks don't see
Right.
that.
They
And
don't-
that's
they
when
don't
you
see it.
need the extra
Yeah.
person by your side telling you,
Yeah.
pump the brakes on that one, buddy.
But I do think it is sort of, and again, we're using probably the worst example for this, but I think there's definitely, and I've seen it, where there's a little too much sensitivity sometimes.
There
Where,
can
and also communicating by text, we all know this. Like, that's probably the worst way to
No.
get any kind of like meaning. Like,
Emojis have solved the problem.
oh,
Caps
sure.
lock, unleash the fury.
Unicode, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, it's hard
Well-
for all of us to sort of sit in judgment, but
But we do it.
No, it's
Maybe
not.
we
I'm
should.
doing,
But we
I'm
do
doing
it
it right
anyway.
now.
we
It's real
find
easy.
we find a way.
you're right. I'm sorry. What was I thinking?
I
Sorry.
love this.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of feedback that we should probably get through because I've heard
Pile
other people
drive
do
this
it.
feedback.
It's actually
we
a
got
good
an-
piece of feedback, actually. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, well, we got a couple of things actually. We got an email from Chris Thompson, and this is in
Hi, Chris.
reference to episode 16, "Bring Your Own Linux." I don't know where I get these. I'm so awful at.
We're going to
At,
crowdsource these from
episode.
now on, Bill.
I really wish you would. Anyway, they wrote, "Awesome show. Just came across Linux OTC and have been enjoying the content. You guys hit a subject in this episode that draws out a ton of angst for me. The idea
Uh-oh.
of converged angst.
I thought you said it was a
The
good
idea
email.
of converged devices and Linux on a phone or tablet. I've been using a Lenovo X1 3rd-gen tablet PC, which is a Surface competitor, for some years now. In the early days, it was a bit challenging to get a good experience using Linux on this device. However, these days it's actually quite nice, particularly the Wayland experience on Genome or KDE.
Kadi. It's Kadi.
No, he
KDE.
literally
Well done.
he spelled it Genome. He, she, KDE.
Good
I am
point.
currently on Fedora KDE Spin. I'm quite pleased with it, despite its age. Short of the fact that the fingerprint reader doesn't work and probably never will. My
Fedora
dream,
KDE spin on that.
yeah,
I'm impressed. Sorry, continue.
some stuff just works better than others, I guess.
Norbert was using Fedora on a Surface for quite a while.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
it's a-
I think he was a Genome
It's not
user,
that's not the
though.
one I
He was
picked, but it's
Genome,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
My dream in the early days was to have a single device that would let me run my Linux apps on the desktop and occasionally run a needed
Yeah.
Android app. Yeah, that's
Yeah. Yep.
that's
yep,
the goat. It's the Android app bit that really has been the problem. Sure, there are solutions such as Anbox and Waydroid, and Waydroid is really getting to a usable state these days. Here's what drives me nuts: the Google foo and DRM. I hate the fact that there are always limitations in one way or another with Google Play requirements. Google Play certified, or other DRM schemes from the likes of companies such as Netflix that somehow get in the way. The other avenue I pursued was a dual boot option in which I ran in something like Android x86 or derivatives such as BlissOS, yet still found myself with many of the same problems. In the end, I still leverage a dedicated Android tablet that I use for media consumption, and I do my real work on the Lenovo tablet PC running Linux. My dream of the one device that does it all is probably never going to come to fruition due to the likes of Google, Netflix, and perhaps others, to include Amazon. I have a fairly large Kindle ebook collection. One item to note, I do own a DeX-capable Samsung phone, and when Linux on DeX was a thing that piqued my interest as an interesting convergent device, of course, Samsung killed that. Thanks so much for the content you all produce. Looking forward to the next episode. Best regards, Chris. And
Awesome. Thank
welcome.
you, Chris.
Yes, thanks for that. And I can relate to a lot of this because one thing I wanted to do when I've got all these Raspberry Pis, and one thing I would love to do is make a really good usable TV box. And I know there's stuff like LibreElec out there and stuff where you can get Kodi going, and then you can put
That's
add-ons.
the pinnacle, isn't it?
Yeah, well, but you're not going to have your Netflix. You're not going to have your Prime. There's been
You can.
well, but it'll work for a couple days, and then the goalpost to be moved, and then it won't work. You know, there's no real stable options that are, in my opinion, a go-to for taking and making your own TV box, and it's kind of irritating to me because.
So when I heard this piece of feedback, I actually had quite a lot of thoughts.
And he's
So
forgotten
the first,
them all.
yeah. So, so firstly, I have also been thinking about the whole idea of a convergent device, and I have done many. I've had many different devices, whether they be Android tablets, Android phones, iPads, Windows Surface type machines, convertible laptops, all sorts of things. With the idea, most recently a Samsung Galaxy phone with DeX. You know, the idea that, you know, I just need this one computer device which I can use everywhere. You know, it can be my TV box, it can be my laptop, it can be my smartphone, it can be this. Every single time I've tried that, it's never worked. Not because the software itself is a problem, it's just not as convenient. And when it comes to something like that, convenience is one of the biggest factors. As an example, I mean, I think we discussed this on a previous Mintcast, or was it OTC? I can't remember. You know, if I have to write a proper email, I'll just get my laptop out. You know, I could do it on my phone, but if I need to do it properly, for me, it's more convenient to just get my laptop out and do
If
it.
there's more than 2 paragraphs, man, my thumbs ain't doing it.
Similarly, when
Yeah.
it comes to watching, you know, I can have all these movies that I've downloaded legally, by the way, on my phone. Yeah. But in reality, I would still rather sit in front of my television and watch it, you know, on my big however many screen thing. And so I've started rowing back a little bit because I'm kind of realizing, yes, it's great to have that functionality, but I just don't use it in that way. It's just not as convenient. For example, the DeX thing. I know Eric and Bill do use DeX quite a lot, and it is really good. I'm not going to lie, but
Gonna break.
you know,
one day.
for me to use it, you know, is, you know, connecting up to a monitor, getting a Bluetooth keyboard out, getting a Bluetooth mouse out and stuff. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to be doing all of that, I might as well just put my desktop on.
But see, this is what I love hearing about this, and as I've been talking to different people about this, I'm getting different interpretations and use cases of like, what are your requirements? What do you consider a convergent device? What do you consider, like, to me, it's more about the utility of this device can be this thing. It can be a tablet, a media consumption device, a very light web browser. But then if I want to get the laptop or the keyboard and the mouse out, like, look out, I'm in laptop mode and I can actually get some work done. That's really what I think I'm most motivated and interested in. But the idea that, I mean, your set of requirements, I'm not going to lie to you, when you were going through that, that's a tall order. Like you're asking for one device to be able to basically do all this stuff. So
I mean, the problem was, I think, my own ideas. It was an unrealistic expectation, really, to find something that
It becomes
would do all of
unwieldy
those.
too.
Yeah, but
Because-
to find, but even like, as I said, even if I was just to be able to replace my work laptop with just my Samsung DeX, I don't know, maybe if I buy maybe a next dock type of laptop. I know a colleague of mine, he's done that, and that seems to work quite well for him. I don't know if that's maybe something to look into, but yeah, I've just come to the conclusion that in a kind of, and this is a kind of Linux way of doing it, actually, I suppose, have the right tool for the job. you know. And yes,
There's nothing wrong with having a
found
couple
the
different
answer.
devices.
yeah, and that
Right.
it might be that you can use the same tool for more than one job, but to think that you can use the most minimum number of
one
tools for the
thing.
maximum
Right.
number of things is unrealistic, you know.
Right.
And so, for example, I've now started finding that my preferences for my devices have changed slightly.
He's
in
gonna
the sense
say
that
it's coming.
So-
I'm excited
What?
for it.
what?
Oh, I want to know what devices you're using because I have a feeling I know what they are, but I'm gonna
No,
let
no,
you
no.
finish.
No. But I mean, so for example, I used to have a, you know, as I said, a Surface style Windows laptop with a pen and all that sort of stuff, and I realized that actually a convertible laptop with a pen that I use once in a while is more than good enough. I don't need to have a separate device which has that touch first functionality, for example. You just basically as I said, you need one thing. The one thing, I suppose, if there is one device that I can use for most things, it will probably be my tablet, because I've got a reasonably sized Samsung Galaxy Tab, which if I wanted to, I could do my work on, and I could watch my TV on, and I could read a book on, and browse the web on.
And that's why I'm kind of stuck on tablet, because that is sort of the screen size, right? Where
Yeah.
you can.
Makes a
But
little
then,
more sense.
but then, you know, you're gonna have to pick, I think, the correct size, because you have mini tablets, you have tablets which are like 10-inch style. You get these big Samsung Galaxy Ultra massive screens.
Well, I got the Plus, and
Yeah.
the Plus is 12.5 inches, and I will tell you that there are lots of times where I want to use it just like a tablet. That 10 inches is the right size for a tablet.
Yeah.
Smacks you
for-
right in the face
I would
with
agree
Exactly.
with you. I would agree with
Exactly.
you. I think 10
But
inches is
then
probably
when
the
I'm
best.
using Dex and I've got multiple windows, and it's like, oh, now the 12.5 makes sense,
So the thing about Dex, I use that when I'm on the road because I can plug that directly into my TV, and most of the time I just use it to consume content.
I'm using it in a weird way. I get that. Most people are using it where their phone is hooked to something bigger, and
Yeah.
they turn their phone into like a computer, whereas I'm using a device that's already sort of can be a computer. It's just the UI is not.
Yeah, he's using it the same
Optimized.
way someone would use an iPad Pro.
with the as a monitor.
I beat the
basically.
system, Leo.
That's it. Yeah. You
Well, what
escaped,
occurred to
man.
me was, I hook it to my TV, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this works really good with the Netflix and the Prime and everything, and I could sit here on the road, anywhere on the road, and consume content on my 22-inch TV here in my truck. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try the keyboard thing. So I've got like 3 of those little Raspberry Pi keyboards, and I brought one of those along, and I got a hub, a little USB-C hub. So I hooked that to the phone, and then I got the phone sitting on a wireless charger, right? And then I've got the keyboard plugged into the hub, and then I've got some like external storage plugged into the hub and a wireless mouse plugged into the hub, and I got all this stuff, like I'm pushing stuff out of the way so I got room for my mouse. And then I look over at my bag, and there's 2 laptops in there that I could have just got one of them out, fired it up, and did all these things.
When
without-
does technology listen? You're a man on your own. Entertaining
Yeah.
Listen, what is the real goal here? Is it that you're trying to get to the end result and get to that screen and get all your stuff, or is it fun to play with all of
it
this
was
stuff?
it was
Is it
fun
the
to play
journey
with.
rather than the destination?
Because I was really
Gentoo.
trying to wrap my head around why the whole, because in the early days of late night Linux, Joe, I'll be real positive about this. Joe was really laser focused on the whole Ubuntu Touch and all that stuff. He was really jazzed up about convergence, the way everybody was trying to shoehorn it into the ecosystem in those days. And I really struggled with the use cases for that, because it seemed like all of the these imaginary use cases that people had were not realistic in my mind, because they seemed more like you're trying to take something and convince everybody that this would be more convenient, but by the time you hook up all the things to make it work, it's actually less convenient than
Well,
just
I mean,
firing
you're
up a
going too far.
laptop.
Dongle life, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I like dongle life. It's not that bad. But let me
Yeah,
tell
Dongle
you
Life's
something,
not that
though.
bad.
if you're making a phone OS and then the phone doesn't work, you kind of just it's a taboo at that
Well,
point.
okay, there was that. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Had they been able to solve the radio problems
Yes.
and the software, what is it, the authority,
Gotta love proprietary blobs.
right, and all that's, if they would have gotten over those few humps and had I think that a lot of people would have accepted lesser performance, older hardware. Like there would have been a
Yeah,
lot of
look
things.
at Android.
Well, yeah.
Look,
Okay,
Microsoft
are
phones
you in line for the 15, Leo?
in it's on its way, dude. Come on.
Oh,
Come on. Hey, look, it's been a few years. I'm
know.
I'm on the
Listen,
I
11
do
or
know a
something,
lot of
so
people
it's-
that go and they
it's
buy
time.
crap phones because
Right.
they're cheaper, and then they're not so happy with the performance.
Well, then they never
but
get
Well,
an actual
they
update.
would never dream of spending
but what
real
is it
money
that people
on a
are
phone,
doing? Honestly, again, I think we're come back to Majid explaining what his idea of this device is and my idea what a device is, and I think there's enough of a sort of spectrum of use cases, and also what's acceptable. Like I would be happy enough with an open source alternative that I could run mostly all the stuff, or all of the important stuff, and I can use it as a real phone, text people, because we still do that here, Majid. I know people in the UK gave up texting about 25 years ago.
No.
but,
We still do text. We still text. Don't worry.
Anyway,
But is
I
it
would be-
SMS texting?
Nah,
Well, no,
probably not.
we've got RCS now.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Well, Google's starting to do that. We're getting little bits of it. So
One
anyway,
day.
yes, someday, 20 years from now, we'll have.
I actually quite like
one of the-
RCS actually.
One of the biggest companies in the world. One day.
Yeah. Well, let's not get into Google's track record on that sort of stuff. But
Let's. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
well,
we don't have enough
anyway.
time for that.
I
That's
honestly-
the next
I would-
episode. Killed by Google.
Now, I would honestly give up. I not give up. I would be happy with 2 seconds to open an app. It would be okay. I would live. It wouldn't have to be. And
Oh, so you
that's
like
so.
Snap.
But what's funny is using a Google product when it's slow, I'm irate.
Yeah.
Why is this taking so long? Blah, 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 blah. I have a very much higher
Billion-dollar
expectation.
company, dude.
Exactly. I have a much higher expectation out of this product than I would out of an open source product that is built by volunteers who are spending their free time doing something really nice for me.
Yeah.
So
and that is why I get irritated with Audacity. Audacity's got a company behind it. It's not just some
Just
little
recently.
project.
Think about how
Roads
much
lead to
tech-
Audacity, don't they,
It's-
Bill?
Think about how much technical debt
They really
that
do, don't
group accepted when they took on Audacity. It's not
Right,
like they
but-
can just. It's not like they could just trash the entire source code base. That they had to go to every.
I'm
single
sorry, dear listener.
developer.
We're now going to get a 5-minute rant by Bill about how much he hates Audacity. I do apologize.
I don't hate it. I want it to be great, and
He's
dearly
not
want
angry.
it to be
He's
great.
just disappointed. But he's
Hang
also
on, hang
angry
on.
as well.
Before we get to the Audacity thing, I wanna.
Let it go.
The last word on this whole convergence
great. Now that
thing,
song's in my head.
The last word on the convergence
that a great
thing
song?
that I wanna throw out there is that I gave up on expecting Linux to do everything. So instead, what I've done is I've bought the purpose-built stuff. There isn't Linux on a phone, unfortunately. It does not work as a
Wait.
phone and all of that. So what I've done is I've gone to iOS. There is not
Yeah.
Linux on the TV. Roku, not Roku. What is it? Kodi. Kodi is great. It does a lot of things. It hooks up to Plex, but I don't just watch stuff from my Plex. So I've gone to Roku because I hate Google.
Right. Right.
And lots of things in my life have gone this way. And y'all were talking about how the tablet can do this and how it's the right size for this and big and that. No, my framework, 13-inch, running Linux, does all of that stuff just fine. I don't have to worry about, how do I connect up is Bluetooth working today? No, the keyboard is built in, man. It's the way it's meant to be. And everything is interchangeable on it. So I'm hooking up to an HDMI TV today. I'm hooking up to a DisplayPort monitor now. I could just slip, slap, slip, whoop, whoop, done. Framework can do it all. It's amazing. So framework and then purpose-built stuff.
I'm starting to sense themes here. I'm going to expect at each show I hear, you use Arch out of Bill. I'm going to
course.
hear some mention of framework out of
Oh,
Leo.
dude,
You know,
yeah. I'll never stop singing the praises, man.
listen, I am so, every time I hear anyone talk about framework, I go do a little bit more research and I'm like, oh, it's so hard not to
Look,
just say.
here's what you do. Here's what you do. You don't even have to buy the latest and greatest. They just put their 11th gen. That's what I'm using. 11th gen framework motherboards on sale for like $400. The i7.
Now,
Yeah.
see,
You
I
can
would
get
consider that.
You can get an entire machine, every single bit of it.
That's
for like
crazy.
$750 right now. It's a little old. It's 2 gens old.
I don't
but,
care.
But
I've never cared
$750,
about that.
This is you know, decent, just off lease enterprise Lenovo hardware prices, and it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it.
Oh, I didn't know that they had. Yeah, I have no problem, and especially, and I know it's built for Linux, so you're not going to have that problem with the framework. But I've always, just for the sake of caution, usually bought a few at least one, if not 2 generations older,
That's
with my
perfect timing.
hardware. Especially a laptop, right? I mean, if you buy a brand new laptop and expect Linux to work on it that isn't built for Linux, like,
Oh yeah.
something's
You're
not going to be
asking
right.
for it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
to be clear, it's not built for Linux. It's built with Linux in mind. So they
So
do
there's some
work with.
and also they're the type of company that if there's a significant portion of their user base having some sort of an issue,
Oh, yeah.
they're going to address it. Whereas if you go to Dell
fantastic.
or someone else, they're going to be like, why? So run Windows.
Yeah. So there are very specific Linux fixes in the BIOSes that they put out. So it is Linux in mind. I mean, they do fix things for Linux specifically. So,
Yeah.
but but on the front page, it's not like, hey, we run Linux. It's just, after you click a couple times, Linux is compatible with the framework. So you'll see it.
I'm
there.
fine with that. I like the fact that it's a company that's approachable, that you can actually get somebody to talk to about these
Yeah.
things.
And I have great respect that they had a vision, and not an easy one. You think about the amount
Oh, I
of
know.
manufacturing and all the difficulties and supply chain and everything else they've had to deal with, and delivered on that promise, and actually came out with a really great product, and are building upon that. And it seemed to have like a really solid management team, and like it's a salient company, and like I love that. Like, and this is, I mean, anything in this space. I was just talking to my wife today about this, where it's like, why is everything that's manufactured absolute garbage? And she's like, that's not necessarily fair, because there are companies who can manufacture really good quality stuff. You just have to find them, because the mass market stuff is garbage. And unless you would know any better, like if you go buy, HP's latest Walmart special, and what a piece of junk that thing is.
Oh yeah, E-machined. We remember those.
I had one of those.
Yeah.
And when you think about the overall cost of ownership of something like that, yes, it was cheap to buy, but if you ever need to fix it, ever, the plastic clips that are holding that shell together are going to, break as you're pulling it apart.
Yeah.
You're never going to get it back together in one piece, or there's going to be something rattling in there forever. If something isn't already completely soldered on and everything else, like,
Yeah.
the idea, like the audacity of a company like
it stop.
Framework disrupting, coming in and basically saying, right to repair, you got it.
Disrupting, coming in and basically saying, right to
Are you hearing that?
repair, you got it.
I'm hearing
hearing
myself on a
ourselves.
10-second delay.
You
Sorry.
got work to do, Bill.
That was disarming.
The
Oh my
fact
God,
is,
there's another one. No.
What makes it worse is it's taking
I'm
10
hearing
seconds.
myself on a 10-second delay.
Yeah.
Work to do, Bill. That was disarming. Oh my God, there's another one. No.
Majid.
Majid.
Is it me that's causing the problem?
Majid.
Majid.
Yes.
No bueno.
Yeah.
Yes. I know.
Yeah, these
Try
guys-
try muting yourself, maybe.
He's gonna.
Try muting yourself. Maybe.
You're not coming
He's
through the
got to.
headphones. There you go.
Oh,
That helps.
whew, that was
Well, it
That was
doesn't
something.
solve the
I don't.
long
Do you
delay,
guys
though.
monitor yourselves in your?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I don't
But-
know how people do that. Anyway,
Well, there's no latency, so it's no different than me hearing myself talk. If,
yeah,
there,
but
if
it
there's
sounds like
latency,
to me, it sounds like I'm underwater, like I'm in a pool, you know, and I can hear the deep resonant tones. Like I don't know, whatever. I think I can hear myself just fine in the room.
For me, it just reminds me of the old telephones where you used to hear your own voice kind of feed
Oh
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
I never thought of that. Good
no,
point.
that had a slight delay, and that was like it was hard to say.
That
what you wanted to say.
had a slight delay, and that was
So
like it
basically,
was
it feels
hard to
like my
say what you
internet
wanted
has
to say.
died. I don't know why. So I'm at the moment on my phone through my
Yeah, but you have
mobile
to shut
network,
your
trying to figure out
speakers
what
off.
to do.
Yeah, but you have to shut your.
There we go.
We're just gonna mute you for now.
This is gonna be tough to end this one.
Sorry, Majid. We love you, but that's almost impossible to deal with. It's just too like.
There's
If it
way
were
too-
half a second delay, maybe, but like it's like an 8-second loop coming back at you. Anyway, sorry. Now I made
Screw
him
you
leave.
guys.
Yeah.
God, 2 weeks in a row. Never mind. So if I may boil down some of the knowledge that I've gained here, because that's really why I do this. You guys think I just like to come and talk to you or whatever,
Aw,
you know,
I
hear
thought
myself
it was 'cause
talk.
we were good friends.
It's because you're smart people and good friends.
You are
There's,
wrong
so it's like
about
the best of
first
both
one.
worlds.
That's why you're here too.
Now, so honestly, the smartest thing I've heard in this entire episode is
Ooh, was it me? Was
it's
it me?
hard. It was Leo. I'm sorry.
Ah.
It was Leo wins. Yay! No, the idea that it's unreasonable potentially to consider one device, you know, to think about one device as being sort of the panacea of, you know,
Yeah.
all things computing, right? And maybe there's nothing wrong. To Bill's point, Bill, you were partially included in this because you told the story about all of your dongle stuff in the truck, so you also helped us get us there. So anyway, maybe it's
appreciate you
not
giving
such
me
a
that.
bad thing.
Thanks.
That's the episode title, by the way. All the dongle stuff.
All the
but
dongles.
The idea that, you know, that we don't necessarily have to assume that a piece of technology is going to provide all these different capabilities. And I think it's maybe just myself. I just kind of have to say, okay, like I have to be okay with the idea that maybe something small, thin, and light is, you know, or a tablet just isn't going to do it, or at least not right now. And maybe that fuels my desire to keep looking for something better. But if nothing else, I've really enjoyed the conversations around this, and I genuinely have appreciated your knowledge and feedback on this stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting how this continues to be kind of an interesting subject after all this time, where, you know, I feel like it's been established that perhaps convergence was a good idea if you weren't actually doing it, you know, the way they wanted it to work. But then,
Would you say it's a good idea, but for such a niche or niche number of people, that for it to take off and become established was never going to happen. It was never
No.
going to be.
I think there's
because-
just a lot of reasons, you know.
Think about futuristic sci-fi, right? You always see, I'm on this device and I flick something off and it goes to my TV that's on the wall.
Hang on,
if it's
hang
even
on.
a TV.
You know that exists, right? It exists in iOS, iPadOS. That's quite literally.
Can you literally
Get it
flick
out of here.
No, 100%. You have a Mac, you have an iPad, and you can between the two. Yeah, it's called Sidecar. Yep, absolutely. We
Well,
live in the future, everybody. You just have to have the right devices.
See, this is what you get when you don't use Apple products. You know,
Well,
I don't know that any of this stuff
this
exists.
is the thing, is
so.
that like, I mean, I love Linux, and for every use where Linux makes sense, I will absolutely 100% use it because it is the best product, the best thing, the best tool for the job. But I will not. I stopped this a couple of years ago. I will not limit myself to using the wrong tool for the right job. I just won't do it. My life needs to have a little bit of ease in it sometimes. And sometimes for work, that means it's Mac, unfortunately. And sometimes at home, that means it's Windows. So I have
I think
all
there's a-
three
I
of the
think
main
there's a
operating
trade-off.
systems in my life. There is.
I think
there
there's a
is.
trade-off. Yeah, there's a trade-off that you have between convenience, utility, and what your own expectations or desires are. And where people fall on that continuum, or that, if you want to say a triangle of ideas, really depends on that person. So, for example, I
It's just pick
mentioned
two.
about
in that triangle you said. Pick two. Every OS has two of those things, and you just have to pick it, whatever you want.
Yeah. So for example, from my perspective, when I used a Mac as an example, yes, it was convenient. Yes, it had good utility, but my own expectations of what I wanted to do with my own hardware were too limited for me for using it.
Right, that's three things. You get rid of one of those things, and Mac becomes a very good platform to do what you want to do on it. And I'll tell you something, the battery's not going to die while you're doing it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
There is
that. The battery life was insane.
Yeah.
I still remember. But what I'm trying to say is that where everybody falls in that, it depends on that person. There are some compromises that some people are willing to take, and there's some compromises that people aren't willing to take. I thought I would be able to manage the fact that this was such a closed, walled garden system, whatever. And me personally, I couldn't manage that. But I only knew that after trying it out. At the same time, but that's me personally.
It's not that closed a system. Can you get into the kernel and change the BSD kernel that it's using? No, you can't. But you can get any software that you can get on Linux. You can get on Mac. Homebrew exists, and that's exactly what it is. It's a port system for Mac, and then there's Mac ports. If it's not in Homebrew, it's in Mac ports. So if it's a software problem, that's easily fixable. Everything open source is available. And if it's a UI problem, as long as you're okay spending a couple dollars, that's fixable too. Because in the Mac ecosystem, people expect to be paid for their work, as it should be.
As I said, everybody's going to have their own personal kind of point on where that is, right? I thought I would be able to manage with it, but personally I couldn't. But that doesn't mean that other people can't, right? I know people, for example, who I'm not one of those people that, I need to have everything has to be open source, everything has to be free, everything has to be, I don't want to pay for a single dime of anything. I understand that, but as I said, it depends what trade-off you're happy to have. So again, if we're going to go, I prefer Android to iOS, but even when I do have Android, I don't particularly like the Pixel personally distribution that they have. I prefer something slightly different, but that's just, again, my personal things. And as I said, it's where on that triad of convenience, utility, and expectation are you happy with. Interestingly, I've replaced my phone recently, and when I was doing that replacement, the one thing that to my own surprise, which I actually found the most important thing to me, was fast charging. That's me personally, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm at work, I'm this, that, and the other. Phone battery runs out. I don't necessarily have access to, the appropriate plugs when I'm running around to the emergency department or to the operating theatre or whatever. Being able to plug my phone in for 10 minutes and get 70% charge, something insane like that. With some of these Chinese chargers that phones, OnePlus has, Xiaomi have, Oppo, etc. And even though that you could say that's a very minor thing. I mean, who cares about that? But for me, the convenience of that outperformed the other aspects that you might say are a problem with those brands, or a problem
that's a very
with that
wide
software.
expectation, because a big company put that into like all of their stuff. Like all the companies have that now.
Samsung doesn't, Apple doesn't, and neither does Google.
Apple-
and that's Apple do not have fast charging. Apple do not have fast charging.
The 20-watt thing.
20 watts, mate. My OnePlus is 100 watts. My Xiaomi that I had before was 125 watts.
Man,
And
Is
you
it
just-
glowing red whenever it's charged?
no joke. And you're talking about battery
Does it heat
longevity.
the entire room?
That's gonna wreck the longevity of that battery.
Yeah,
never had an issue.
seriously.
Never had an issue because what they do is they have split batteries. So there's actually, it's not like there's one 5,000 milliamp cell battery. There's two 2,500 ones.
Wow.
So they split the charge between the two. And as I said, I know you might think, wow, who needs it? It is a game changer. I never have to
Yeah,
worry
because
about
you're using
charging
your
my
phone
phone.
constantly all day, and to be able to sit and just get 15 minutes of a boost or something.
Yeah,
I
mean,
get it.
just while I was sitting here, it's gone up from, what was it when I put it on the charger? 19% to 100%. I've taken the phone off the charger about 10 minutes ago.
But so I have, whatever, I don't even remember what the wattage of this Google is, but it'll do the same thing in 35, 40 minutes ish. I'll go from 20 to 90. I mean, it charges really fast. I mean, the point,
the Pixels,
and also,
if I remember correctly, the good thing about the Pixels at least is that their fast charging isn't a proprietary platform. It's USB power delivery. The one issue that you do have is that a lot of the Chinese brands with their fast charging, they will only work on their phones.
Oh.
And so if you plug, so even though I've got this massive brick, 100-watt SuperVOOC brick here,
Wow.
if I connect this up to my Samsung, it will just do the standard 10, 15 watts or whatever. It won't do the full whack.
Right.
Right?
It steps down. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it steps down. Now, as I said, this is maybe a minor thing. For a lot of people, it's not relevant. But I was surprised how important that was to me. I was surprised that,
Well,
the fact
and it's
that
also
I'll be
one of
able-
those things that once you have it, and
Yes.
you go to something that doesn't, it's unacceptable. Like,
Yeah,
why would this take
it's
3
weird.
hours to charge? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, but anyway, I think Leo's right to a certain degree. I mean, I haven't bought a mobile device in the last 3 years that didn't have some sort of like fast charging, whether it was,
Not 100
whatever
watt, but-
standard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
and
Samsung's
some
got
do
it. I never
charge.
use it.
Some of them charge noticeably faster, but at the same time, I've also noticed that either the batteries themselves are larger, and Android has gotten better with battery life. Not Apple level quality, but they've gotten much better. There's some sort of like literally dark magic happening there. I don't know what they
Yeah,
do.
it's called control of the entire
The whole
system from
stack.
top to
Yeah,
bottom.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why Android can't do, or why Google can't do that with their own devices is,
Now that is a good point. Why are the Pixels not 1-to-1 with the Apple stuff?
because it's Google.
Well,
Yeah, but they
yeah,
control
possibly.
it all. They should be able to do that with the money
they
they
don't
have,
have-
the money they make.
But Google, the way their management structure is internally,
course.
they don't have that sort of cohesive focus on like getting
Right.
this thing done.
They could do that.
They could.
but they don't.
Right.
Well, guys, we've gone over.
Yes.
So,
No, this is a normal sized show.
yeah, it is.
Bill, I'm going to start making you do the like 0.5 on all
I-
of these. 17.5.
I need
Yeah.
I need to figure out a way to wind things down because I feel like it could just go on for days.
You just need that little thing, and it's the music that plays you off the
Right.
stage.
Well, you just stop. It's okay. You've
I need
told
a
us
sign
we
that
can
says
stop
Wrap
now.
it up.
Bill,
Yeah.
actually, you need to have it stop like right where Eric says stop. That's it. Like that's the end of the show. That would be hilarious.
Anyway, even if you
Nobody
don't do
goes
that.
to linuxotc.org. Nobody goes.
Oh,
Do they?
I've got
Wow.
stats. I've got
Oh yeah.
data to
All right.
refute
Analytics now. Feed it to the AI,
Yeah,
ML,
good
learning,
old
whatever,
jetpack.
something or another, and it'll tell us exactly how to be better.
All
Well, I
right,
think
well,
that's what's given us the information. So
are
anyway,
we done recording then? Or?
no. Let us know what you think, folks. We really appreciate the input, the feedback, and that. Email the show at linuxotc.org. You can comment on YouTube and even
Off the
directly on the
chain.
website. Off the chang-lang. Off the chain. So anyway, we'll be back in 2 weeks, unless one of us isn't. Anyway,
Or we
until
won't.
then.
But yeah,
Or
don't,
we
be, don't
won't.
be so pessimistic, Bill.
Until then, I've been Bill.
I've been Eric.
I've been Majid, the magic number.
And I'm still not doing it.
He's been Leo.
He wanted to. I saw it.
Bye, folks.